Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about how Pandemic Legacy might have changed my life. If this is your first time here, thanks very much for watching. Why not consider clicking the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the 5 uploads I do every week. Now going back probably only around 18 months ago, I never really used to play many traditional board games. Pretty much the only board games I really bought were for the miniatures themselves. I'd play the odd game from time to time, but not really having a social circle who were into board games, and my wife certainly wasn't interested. I didn't really feel the need to pick any of them up. Now my wife and I both work away with our day jobs, and that's meant that during the week we split our time around parenting responsibilities. That had meant that weekends tend to have become, we spend some time together during the day, we get the little one off to bed on an evening, and then we open a bottle of wine and we probably sit on the sofa with some Netflix series that we're watching. Now there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm sure that's a familiar story to a lot of people. It meant that my wife had some time during the week to do her hobby stuff, which either going to the gym or whatever else she wanted to do. I had my time when I could spend some time doing a bit of hobby and making some YouTube videos. Now that all changed when I picked up Pandemic Legacy. Now if I remember right, it was through one of my Monday night live streams that somebody recommended this game to me. Now I had heard of Pandemic, however I'd never played it, and visually it never really appealed to me. Those little coloured cubes on a world map always sparked some kind of deep-seated memories of a holiday we had with myself, my wife, my 2 older sons. I insisted we spend some family time together, and we had a game of Risk. Now as you can imagine, anybody that's played Risk before, you know where this is going. My sons were probably about 11 at the time, and it ended up with one of my sons in tears saying we were all ganging up on him and he stormed off. And that wasn't exactly the family time that I was hoping to pull together. So when I saw Pandemic, that's kind of what it reminded me of. Now as far as Pandemic Legacy goes, visually the appeal is exactly the same. It's coloured cubes on a world map, and again it didn't really grab me. However, it was the story mode behind it, the legacy aspect, the fact that when you play one game, things will happen and they will affect the way the game plays the next time you play it. And there's no reset button, there's no rewind. Once you change that game, the game's always changed. So I found that really interesting. Now I should just say that Pandemic Legacy isn't that cheap a game, especially for a game that once you've played all the way through, it's game over, you can't play it anymore. However, I saw a deal online, so I thought I'd give it a punt. Now the game box itself is actually quite intimidating when you see it compared to the size of the standard Pandemic game, and once I opened it, there's a heck of a lot of stuff inside it and it was a little bit daunting. However, the rulebook's pretty good, it takes you by the hand and leads you through the setup, and that really helped us kind of get our foot in the door. Now the rulebook for Pandemic Legacy suggests if you've never played Pandemic before, which we hadn't, that you ignore a couple of rules in this new rulebook and you play the standard version. So that's exactly what we did for a few games. It was deceptively easy to set up, and the rules themselves are actually really simple. It looks like it's going to be complicated, but it just isn't. The difficulty, I suppose, comes in the tactics and the approach to the game. So we set it up. The first game we played was myself, my wife, my 2 older sons. We royally got our asses kicked in that game, and then my 2 sons decided they wanted to go off and do something else. Me and my wife reset it again, played a second game, and again got our asses kicked, put it back in the box and kind of put it to one side for a little bit. I'd taken some pictures, I shared them on our Facebook group, and a couple of people sort of dropped in a couple of tactics. Have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? I don't want to spoil it, so I won't spoil it for anyone else. So a few days later, my wife and I decided to give it a second go. We set it up and we tried a couple of those tactics, and then something clicked when we played it this second time. And I don't think it was the tactics that people had shared. It was the fact that I don't think we'd been approaching it as a game where we were both sort of playing together against the game. We hadn't played it as a co-op game. At this point, we really started discussing their strategies, and if you do this and I do that, and what about this, and if this happens, we really started to get into it. Something just clicked, and the game flowed really, really well. Now this might seem obvious to a lot of people watching this video, but to me, the idea of co-op games, I suppose, I'd only ever played competitive games, and the idea of a co-op game where we were both against the AI or against the game was something quite new. We then went on to win our next 2 games, and we felt ready to tackle the Legacy Edition. Now I don't want to spoil anything about Pandemic Legacy because I think if you want to play it, there's some really cool surprises inside, so I'll try and stay spoiler free. But essentially the idea of the game is you're playing as World Health Organization agents, and you're trying to stop the spread of a disease around the globe. And you fly around or visit different cities trying to cure diseases, trying to find a cure for disease, and trying to eradicate them. Now, the Legacy Edition changes things up a little bit as you play the game through 12 months of the year. Now, as you start in January, you'll have an objective of what the win condition will be, and you play pretty much with the standard rules. At the end of that month, you either win or lose against the game. If you lose, you get the chance to replay that month again with any of the conditions that have changed, and you have a second chance to try and win. If you lose again that second month, you then just move on to February. Now, win or lose, there is a stage at the end of the game where you will upgrade your characters or upgrade sort of game conditions. And there is also a legacy deck, which is very sort of well described, says stop, don't read until this happens. You then draw those cards as appropriate. It then tells you a little bit more of the story progressing. It will change some of the conditions within the game, and it will tell you to open some of the hidden files. Now, these hidden files will have new rules in the game where they're little stickers and you stick them into the rule book, and it changes the way the game plays. Now, it's really interesting that extra rules every game you play, in theory, should be really confusing, but it's handled really well, that those rules are just enough to change the next game, but not enough for your head to pop thinking, I can't handle all these extra rules. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a game that if you play all the way through to the end, you can't play it again. So potentially you will have a minimum of 12 games if you win every single of the 12 months, or you could have a maximum of 24 games if you lose every one of the months, as you do get 2 chances at each month. So we dove in and we played through the January game, and we took it really slowly to make sure we didn't make any mistakes, and we actually managed to win. We got to the game end conditions, we opened the cards that we had to open, we opened the files we had to open, and we upgraded our characters. And we were absolutely hooked at this point. It really did feel like we were playing through some kind of Netflix series where we were controlling what happened, and the decisions we were making directly affected the next game we played. Now, best of all, we were sitting together playing. We were talking things over, we were mulling through the different situations, we were discussing strategies, and we weren't just kind of vegged on a sofa with a mobile in hand and a glass of wine in the other, watching some mindless TV series. We were stressing together as cities became overrun with outbreaks, and we were cheering when we finally won at the end of the month. Now, this was a bit of a light bulb moment, and it really did open up a whole new world of board gaming for us. Up until then, if we'd played a game, it was against each other across the table. There was those moments of silence where you're sitting thinking about what you want to do, and that's not really very social. This being a co-op experience was very, very different. Now, most nights, if we get some free time together, we break open a board game. And yes, we're playing the classic stuff like Carcassonne and Exploding Kittens. However, it has sparked a real interest in my wife, and certainly really exploded my interest in board games to the point where we try lots of new things we'd never have considered before, and has been a real catalyst in pushing this channel forward. It's given us both a common hobby, it's given us a shared interest, it's something we really look forward to, even if it is still with a glass of wine. And it has really sparked something in me back then, 18 months ago, that made me really want to push ahead and make this channel the best it could be. If you and your partner don't enjoy playing board games together, maybe consider that you just haven't found the right one to ignite that spark. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.